morning is from Gospel of Luke, chapter 15. I'll be reading from verses 21 through 24. It's a parable of the prodigal son. This man had two sons. Both of them had problems. You'll see at the end of the chapter, you'll see the older son had a problem too. But the younger son goes to his father and he says, I want my inheritance. And the father gives it to him, divides it between the two sons. The older son goes home and works for his father. But the younger one leaves home, goes out into the world, and lives a very wild, worldly life. Till things go bad. He has nowhere to turn. So he goes back home. Reading in verse 21. The son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fatted calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And so they began to celebrate.
We all occasionally make mistakes, don't we? And even I have made a few. Debbie says, yeah, but there's only so much time, and we don't have time to go over all those. Some of our mistakes are a little embarrassing, but we can get over it. While I was preparing this lesson, I read about, these. You see these from time to time in church bulletins. I saw this one. Anybody see the mistake in it? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. And then there's this one, kind of along the same line. Now these are kind of embarrassing, but we can live with it, can't we? We can laugh at ourselves. And sometimes in some congregations, you'll have that one person that's usually the retired English teacher who's going to be looking over the bulletin, going to be going down everything. Oh, there's a comma that's missing. He misspelled it. And then they're not going to hesitate to point it out to the preacher or the secretary or whoever is presenting or preparing the bulletin each week. But these are ones here that, like I say, they're just fun. But there are going to be sometimes we make mistakes. We get into a bad situation. It's more than just embarrassing. It can really affect our lives. And that's what we're looking at today. Someone who got into a wrong situation, but he didn't let it stop him from going and making things right. And this is our lesson in the Sunday school class this morning. And as I've said over the next several weeks, either the suggested memory verse or the suggested virtues will be what we base the lesson on. And so song leaders can use that for inspiration for the songs you pick out. And then this will give you an idea of what we're going to be preaching on during our worship time. And so our suggested memory verse is what was read a minute ago by Dean. And we're going to look at the prodigal son, obviously. But what I want to do is I want us to look at some of the decisions and the steps that this young man went through. That's why I call this Prodigal 360, because he comes full circle. When we look at this and we think about what all went into it, what exactly went into his getting his inheritance and taking off and going out into the world. He is representative of the people of Israel. He can also be representative of us today. People who have left God or for whatever reason don't seem to want anything to do with God. And if they don't get reconciled to God, it's going to end up being a bigger mistake than just a misspelling in a church bulletin. It's going to be, in fact, I really hesitate to call it a mistake because this is a deliberate decision. In other words, a mistake is if I'm giving you directions to my house and I say, go to the 4th light and turn right, and you miscount and you go to the 5th light. That's a mistake. But when you're given directions or you're given a way, like God has given us the way to salvation, and we just completely blow it off, no, I'm not going to have anything to do with it, that's not a mistake. That's a conscious decision. And that's what this prodigal son did. And as best as I could, try to make this into like a compass. And I want us to look first of all at his decision. Nothing happens without first a decision. He decided he wanted to be independent of his father. And think about just today. How many decisions have you made today? We've all made decisions. Now, granted, we're not making decisions about sending troops into battle or big Wall Street financial decisions, but we all have to make decisions every day. God did not predestine this young man to leave home like he did. He made a decision, and then he acted upon it. And that's what decisions take, is they take action to put them into work or into force. See, and every day we make choices, we make decisions. You know, this morning that alarm clock went off. There was your first decision. Do I roll over and go back to sleep, or do I get up? Do I hit the snooze button for 10 minutes? And then when I do get out of bed, okay, am I going to have cereal for breakfast, or do I want to cook some eggs, or do I want to hit the McDonald's drive-thru on my way to church? We all have those to make. The biggest, most important decision any of us, that anybody is going to make, is what do I do with Jesus? That's the most important decision you're going to make. Do I follow Jesus or do I follow man? Do I become a Christian or do I go in a different direction? Everybody has to make that kind of a decision at some point in their lives. The decision or the choice we have to obey God has always faced man. Going all the way back to Genesis, that was the first one. We've always had to face that decision, and every day, in some way we face it. Am I going to take time for prayer today? I've got a decision here at work that's an ethical decision, or at school or wherever. Which way am I going to go? This has always been staring man in the face, Adam and Eve. When the serpent came to them and said, has God said, you shall not eat of every tree in the garden? Well, we can eat of every one, except see that one over there, we can't eat of that one. Yeah, well, and then look at the back and forth. They made a choice not to obey God. Joshua chapter 24, the Israelites had a decision to make. Choose this day whom you're going to serve. Right here, right now, I want you people to choose. Who are you going to serve? You're going to serve God. Are you going to serve the gods of the Amorite in whose land you now dwell, or the gods of the Egyptians, or are you going to serve God? Make your choice. And they said at that point they were going to serve God, but how long did it last? And then what about Acts chapter 2? Day of Pentecost. When they asked Peter, men and brethren, what shall we do? Be saved from this generation, perverse generation, or save yourselves, depending on which translation you've got there in verse 40. Then we're told that as those who gladly received Peter's word were baptized, and that day about 3,000 souls were added. Have you ever stopped to think about all the souls that weren't added that day? It says 3,000 were added. I think there were a lot more than 3,000 people there. There were some people who heard what Peter said. I think I'm going to think about this a little more. Or, you got to be kidding me. That Jesus guy was the Messiah. He had all those. But we do know that 3,000 souls were added that day. And then what about when Jesus said to ask, seek, and knock? Something we are to keep doing, a decision I have to keep making. I'm reading the Bibles, I don't understand something. Okay, I need to seek a little more, study a little more. And then you go to the end of the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus said, whoever hears these sayings of mine and does them, puts them into action, uses them. He is like a wise man who built his house on the rock, and you know the rest of it. But everyone who doesn't do these things, well, there's the foolish man building on sand. Decisions. And this prodigal son had to make some decisions. He made a decision. I want to go and get my inheritance. Dad, give me my inheritance. Okay, here it is. Decision time now. The action to depart. Bye, Dad, I'm out of here. And away he goes. There's the action. For any decision to be carried out, action has to be taken. Again, he was not pre-programmed to do this. God did not predestine him. He asked for the inheritance. I got it. Now he's putting it into action. Away he goes. And off into the world. Here's something to remember. If you ever make a decision to depart from God, Satan will have the victory. That young man made a decision to depart home. You can make a decision to depart from God. Satan's won a victory. That man took off, that young man took off. I don't know how old he was. I've wondered about that sometimes. Maybe late teens, 20s, I don't know. Obviously, he was young enough that he thought he had life figured out. Okay, so he's about 18, 19. But off he goes into the world. See, because this is one of many passages I look at and I see where it is entirely possible for a Christian to fall away. I think this parable that Jesus tells, plus the rest of the context here in these couple of chapters, makes the point. God will do everything He possibly can for us all to be faithful, but ultimately it's up to me whether or not I want to stay faithful. Look at chapters 15 and 16. Luke is illustrating this. You look at the shepherd. Look at the woman with the coin. Look at this man with the son. They all lost something valuable, but they managed to recover. The woman found her coin. And this right here, the prodigal son that we're looking at, he eventually did get himself back home. We got a sheep, we got a coin, we got a son. And a Christian who strays is just like these. We're God's possession. If we stray away, we're lost. But hopefully, we get back and are found again before it's too late to be reconciled to God. Look at it this way. What would have happened if that young man died in the foreign country? He's still his father's son, but he's estranged. They're not reconciled. A Christian who wanders away and dies in that situation is not reconciled to God. You see how we can still be lost? It makes a whole lot more sense than saying once you're saved, you're always saved. You can become an atheist, you can commit murder, and you're still going to heaven. And yeah, I've got it in writing of some well-known denominational preachers, household name types, who have taught that. But that's not what the Bible said, and that doesn't really make any logical sense. Look at the shepherd. He lost his one sheep. Okay, so why go after one? He still has 99. Right. He's got 99 that are here. They're safe in the fold. Maybe even in the corral. Leave them with the hired help or with whoever is there. And I got to go find that one. What would have happened if he didn't find that sheep? If a wolf got it? Or a coyote? Or whatever lion? Or whatever predatory animals they have over there? What if that sheep, while wandering around away from the fold, fell off a cliff? He's not going to be able to bring it back. He found it, though. Brought it back, all happy and celebrating. The woman with the lost coin, 10 coins, she loses one. She just lost a tenth of her net value. Now just imagine you've got $1,000 in your pocket, you lose $100. And that $1,000 maybe is your rent money. Aren't you going to be looking, tearing the house apart, trying to find it? It's something that's valuable, something unique. She finally found it. And then, of course, we have the prodigal son here. We have to be aware of how we live and remember that as Christians we can, and sometimes, unfortunately, I hate to say it, Christians do sometimes fall away. We all know some that have. I've known some that were barely out of the baptistry before they fell away. I've I've known some. I've known a couple of cases where elders and preachers aren't faithful anymore. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12. Paul said that whoever thinks he stand, take heed lest he fall. Do you think he was talking about falling down the stairs? Or do you think he was talking about something a little more serious? 2 Corinthians 12, I fear that I may come and find some of you who have sinned and not repented. Well, what did Jesus say in Luke chapter 13? Unless you repent, what? Perish. James chapter 5, verse 19. Where he tells us there that he who turns a sinner from the error of his ways has saved a soul from death. Look at the context. Who is the sinner that he's talking about? It is a brother. And in fact, here, let's just take a quick side trip over here, just real fast. James chapter 5. Brethren, he says, verse 19. If anyone among who? The brethren, right? If I got it right or if I got it wrong? Wanders from the truth and someone turns him back. Turns who back? That brother who's wandered from the truth. Let him know that he who turns what's that word? S-I-N-N-E. Oh, a sinner, right? From the error of his ways he shall save the soul from death and cover a multitude of sins. Who's the sinner? Isn't it that brother who wandered away? You want to tell me again how Christians can't fall? James right here says very clearly they can. We've got to be aware and be careful. Just as the prodigal son made a decision to leave and then acted on it, we can do the same thing. Even today. Satan is the one who really wants people to go astray. Revelation 12, verse 9. He wants us. I think he knows his time's running. He knows it will run out eventually. He wants, what's the old line? Misery loves company. He wants as many of us with him and deceived with him as he possibly can. So once he's made this decision, he's out there in the world, he's got all this money, and now he's going to end up defeated. Defeated in 3 different areas. First of all, morally. He wasted his life on prodigal living. The young man was penniless, he's hungry. Now he's got to, we talked a little bit about this in class this morning, he's got to feed pigs. Remember, this is a Jewish audience Jesus is talking to. Presumably the boy is Jewish. Pigs are unclean. That is going to get their attention. You can't get much lower than having to feed an unclean animal. Then he's defeated financially. He seemed to be spending his money as if he didn't expect to ever be insolvent. Like he was always going to have this money and would never run out, could live just however he wanted to. Now, I've never had that much money. I don't know, maybe you have. I never have. But he obviously was just blowing it. His money ran out, and then notice here comes the famine, and then he's hungry. And this isn't hungry like, lunch is late, or dinner is late. That preacher sure is long-winded, now he's keeping me for lunch. Thanks. He's hungry as in, I haven't eaten in 3 or 4 days. And I don't know where my next meal is coming from. That's the kind of hunger he's experiencing. And then he's defeated personally. He's feeding pigs. He's a hired hand. Way down low on the scale, on the ladder. What am I going to do about this? I need to go home. I need to be reconciled to my Father. What's the great line in this old country song that says, when you hit rock bottom, you have 2 ways to go, straight up or sideways? And that's his option. Can't go any lower. I'm on bedrock. So he decides it's time to go home. It's a realization that he blew it. Now, it may have hit him suddenly. It may have over time. Point is, he realized he had to go home. A person who wanders from God, maybe it will hit them suddenly. You know what? That was really not a smart thing to do. get into sin like this, I'm going back. Or on the other hand, it may just sort of gradually come on to him, I've been thinking about this. Maybe I need to get back to church. Maybe I need to get reconciled to God, get back with my church family. It doesn't matter as long as they get it done. That's what's important. And the important thing to remember is we have to be awake to actions that can lead us from God. It is very easy to stray if we're not careful. I was up in an airplane once in an open cockpit plane. It's a birthday present Debbie gave me. The pilot let me take the controls for a little while. I wasn't paying attention, and he said, have a look at your artificial horizon. That's what you used to look at to tell if you're flying level. Guess what? We weren't level. We were slowly descending, but I didn't notice it. And we were high enough up, it didn't matter. We weren't in any danger. But you can sometimes stray and not really be aware of what's right. You've got to pay attention. Pay attention to how we're living our lives, and make sure we are in the Scriptures, make sure we are in prayer, and that we are in constant fellowship with one another. And then 360, he comes all the way back around to the return. Here he is at rock bottom. He's going back up, and he knew he had hit it. Now he wants to go back up. This came from a recovering alcoholic who said, when I finally hit rock bottom, I was happy to find that the rock was solid. He began to change, and there's 5 words we look at here that can tell the story of someone bouncing back from the bottom. Number 1 is an awakening. Look at verse 17. He came to his senses. Now, I would like to think he realized the depths of the sin. I'd like to think that he realized what a terrible thing he had done, but the truth is, he was hungry. Of course, what difference does it make? He realized his mistake, but he was hungry to start with. And realized, I'm feeding these pigs. My father's servants have got food to eat. And look here. They're eating better than I am. And so then there's some repentance. I will go back to my father. You notice he didn't go back and say, well, I'm going to go to Dad, but Dad's got to make these amends to me. Dad's got to change this. He didn't do that. He took responsibility for what he had done. And is going to go back and be reconciled to his father. There is something there. The people I've known who have left the church because of something that somebody said, they got their nose bent out of shape. You need to be reconciled. Reconcile yourself to God. Don't worry about the other people. Do what you know is the right thing to do. That's what he did here. He did what he knew was the right thing to do. And there's honesty. I will go back at once. No, he wasn't going to wait. Yep, as soon as I get off work today, I'm going to go home. As soon as I get my 90 days in so I can get vacation pay or whatever, I'm going to go home. As soon as Dad apologizes to me for all the mean things he did to me, not giving me enough toys or whatever, then I'll go home. Didn't do that. He did what he knew he needed to do. And notice he has no guarantee when he gets home that Dad's going to accept. Dad might just slam the door in his face. He doesn't know that. But I'm going to go to my father and I'm going to tell him I have sinned against heaven and against you. Which shows the humility. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me as a hired servant. Humility. Here again, he's not going, Dad, yeah, I'm here to apologize, but you need to apologize. You need to do this or that or the other. He just simply went home, very humble about it. But then we see his resolution. He didn't delay. As I said, he went on home. This is a lot of baptisms I've had where I've studied with somebody. We conclude on Monday night or Tuesday, and okay, let's go do it now. I want to wait till Sunday. Why? Well, I want to, do it at church. Grandma's coming to town, or whatever. I had a guy once say he wanted to be baptized because he was going to go watch a movie. If you know what you need to do, let's do it now. He didn't delay. I know what I need to do. I'm doing it. I'm out of here. I'm going home. It looks to me like he just decided to do it and walked off the job. And quit and headed home to reconcile with his father. And then while he's a long way off, his father saw him. Don't know how long he was gone. Months, maybe years, maybe weeks, who knows. I picture his father every day, though, walking down and looking at the road, walking to the edge of his property, down the driveway. looking and seeing, and nobody, he's not coming. And doing that maybe multiple times a day. That's just the way I picture it. And then one day he looks down and he's, oh man, that guy, he looks familiar. And then sees him get closer, and there's my son. And he ran to him. Notice his father put all pride aside. He didn't, you've been an embarrassment to me and your mother. Can't even go to the bridge club anymore. We go to the Rotary meeting and they just laugh at us and everything that you have done. That's not what happened here. My son is home. You see how God is when we come home. He's not going to stand there and embarrass you and humiliate you. God wants the prodigal to come home. And like the prodigal son, we need to see the need for God's forgiveness and return to God. I have sinned and am no longer worthy to be called your son. Just make me a hired servant. But like the prodigal son's father, God waits for our return. That's the good news. That's the beautiful part of it. Doesn't matter what we've done, how bad we are, God is wanting us to come home. Whatever is behind us, God will forgive it. He'll take you in. Someone who's not a Christian being baptized into Christ, having their sins washed away, just like Paul was told to do. A Christian who's struggling, maybe has wandered away. God is waiting. He's looking for you to come home. Sin broke the ties between us and God. It's up to you. It's up to me. It's up to us as individuals to decide to rise up out of that estrangement and seek that reconciliation. It's not difficult. It's a great thing about coming to God. Just coming to God, asking forgiveness, God grants it. We don't have to go through and do a bunch of penance and pay a bunch of money or do anything else. Just like this young man here, he just had to come home. That's all he had to do. And you may have found yourself in that predicament. Maybe you made a decision to leave God. Maybe you just made a bad decision this week that you knew better and you were going against Bible teaching. You need to be reconciled. We offer that opportunity. We offer that opportunity for people to be reconciled to God or to be added to the church. That's how we end the sermon. We'll stand and sing a song here in just a moment. Give you the opportunity to respond publicly, or I'll talk to you privately. It doesn't matter. Make sure you are right with the Lord before you leave here. And if we can help you and you'd like us to help you, let us know. And as together we stand and as we sing.